Well, hello everyone, it's Kari. Welcome back again to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I wanted to turn this die set into the interior of the Queen of Hearts castle. So I'm going to be using those two sets and also this Shields and Crest set. On some of these hearts here, I'm also going to use the Alice background pack stencils, but you could also use the pick a card stencil if you have that one. So there's a bunch of different things you could do with this, but as I was looking at this, I thought, what would the Queen of Hearts decorate the interior of her castle to look like? And so that was my thought behind making this today. And there are different sections in this die. So I cut it out once, and I also cut out a bunch of these mini shields and crests with the hearts from the Key to My Heart mini die set. And we're going to build these up now, and starting with some gray ink. So I thought to put some gray ink down on these shields and then add some gray cardstock for the variation there. And then the hearts are cut out of a red glitter paper. Now I started putting all these together, but I changed my mind later on down the line during this card. So you're going to see what I changed my mind to. But for now, I'm just going to build all these up, and then I'm going to switch them around just a little bit later. So I am putting some foam tape on that heart, and you can see what this one looks like. Again, I'm switching that up a little bit later, so I'm setting all those aside while I think about that. And I'm going to take the ceiling pieces now and just ink a little bit of gray around the edges. Now this does not look like I'm doing much, but when I start putting all this together, you're going to see the variation in the color, and it's going to make that beautiful ceiling archway really pop out a little bit more. You could do this in different colors if you want to. I'm just going to stick with this gray ink for today and see what we come up with. So I'll go ahead with all of those sections, ink on that gray ink, and then we're going to start putting it together, or at least I'm putting it back together momentarily so you can see the results. And once we get everything colored up, then we'll put the entire background together. Now that I've finished inking up those ceilings, let's move on to these columns. So I decided to leave the columns white there, but cut all of the columns out one more time so that we get more of a dimensional look. So here they are cut out, and I'm going to ink over them with a really light pink ink. This is Ballet Slippers, and it's a really light pink, but it's going on a little bit darker. I must have some ink still on my brush here from last time. So I'm going to go ahead and ink all of these columns up. I think the Queen of Hearts would approve. What do you think? And I'll just put those on top of the columns that are already there. Just like so. I think the pink columns are going to be a hit. I went on to think about what would the walls look like for the Queen of Hearts and the floor. So for the floor, I'm going to go ahead and just use the ink that's on my brush already, ink on a little bit of pink, and then I'm going to take the Alice background pack stencil set, and I'm going to use just the heart set from there. I think this would look cute with the pick a card stencil, as I mentioned, because it has all the different card suits. But today, for the Queen of Hearts, we're going to stick with just hearts. And I'm taking a darker pink now, and I'm going to ink that on using a smaller blending brush. So we're going to have heart carpet, which I think is really fun. Look at that. And now for the wallpaper, I went back to the Queen of Hearts set, and there is a rose and a leaf. And I thought it would be fun to make some rose wallpaper, red roses, of course, for the Queen of Hearts. So I'm taking out these pieces here, which I think would have the wallpaper on them. And I'm going to stamp on the roses and the leaves. And I'm just doing this piece by piece, or I'm using an acrylic block to do this. I just bought a brand new Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, and it is really great. The ink is so nice and dark, so I felt like I could do this very well without having to use a MISTI, of course. And I'm using this kind of ink because it is Copic friendly, and I will color these up with Copics to, of course, make them red. So once I get the roses on, I'm going to leave a little bit of space to add some leaves, and then I'll stamp the leaves all about. Whoa, I almost dropped that one there. And we'll put them just around here and there. Now I decided not to color the background of this wallpaper, just leave it white and just color in the leaves and the roses. So I've brought in some green and reds in Copic markers. And I'm stamping here the Queen of Hearts and the White Rabbit, each of those images, to color up along the same time, using some similar colors so everything is kind of going together here. There we go. And I'll just color up the roses on screen for you. I'm using 3 shades of green, a darker, a medium, and a light. And that's how I like to color my images. But these are pretty small, so I'm just going very quickly. And you can see this coloring is pretty fast. And I love how it turns out. But like I said, if you want to color the whole background or add some polka dots or whatever you want, I think it would be really fun to create some variations in this wallpaper. You could even make hearts on the wallpaper too, and I think that would be fun. So once I'm finished with the green, I'll go in with the red, and I'm starting with my darkest shade of red right in the center and adding a few of the shadow lines around here. But you can see I'm not really thinking too much, just adding a few here and there and going rather quickly. A lot of this is going to be covered up by my images, and so I just kind of want the wallpaper to be a quick coloring. I'm leaving this part in, but I did color the Queen of Hearts and the White Rabbit off screen because those ones took me just a little bit longer, and I took more time on them since they would be the forefront images in our card scene today. Now I'm just blending out the darkest shade with that medium shade, and then I'll go through all the rest of it with the lightest shade of red. And there we go. That's going to finish up our coloring for the roses and for the leaves. Now let's start putting together our card panel. I've got the card base right here, and I'm taking the outline of this Castle Arches die and putting it right on that card base. This is the outline for it, and now we just need to puzzle together the rest. Now I've made this Castle Arches die a few times, and I find it easiest to work from the bottom, from the floor up. For some reason today I did it backwards and I'm working from the top down. That's okay, it works either way. I just find it comes together a little bit easier with the floor in first. So I started from the ceiling this time. You can do it either way, and I'm going to start adding those ceiling pieces. And we'll just build this up piece by piece and add these all together. And the pieces are pretty big. They're not like tiny little pieces, so it's really easy to piece this all together. And they just fit in perfectly just like this. And you can see how the arches stay white, and with the ceiling that's a little bit gray because we inked on that gray, it really makes it stand out. Now that we have the smallest of the columns in, we can actually piece in that floor and make sure everything is fitting. I'm going to rearrange things just a little bit here, but that's the beauty of using liquid glue and going a little bit quicker, and you can have time to just kind of move things around as you need to, but it's fitting together pretty well. And now I can add these larger columns right here, the white ones, and then we're going to add the pink ones right over the top of those. So see that? It's coming together, and look at that wallpaper. Yeah, it's bold, big and beautiful floral wallpaper. So that's going on the background. I think it would be fun to ink around the edges of those as well. If you make the Queen's interior castle, I would love it if you tagged me so I could see it. It would be so fun. Okay, so we're adding the wallpaper, finishing that up here, and now we can add those pink columns. Look at how cute these are. Yeah, I like those pink columns. So I'm just gonna glue those on as well. And you can see this is pretty quick to come together. Just a few pieces on top. I'll add my magnet to the top as those dry, just to keep those on secure like that. And adding an extra layer for these columns really does give it more of a 3D effect. So I like that look. Just like that. And here's the last one. Make sure it's the right direction. There we go. Awesome. Now I can add these shields, and as I was looking at it, I thought there's something wrong, something's missing, it's not quite right. The hearts weren't really doing it for me, so I decided to take off those larger hearts, and then I thought maybe the shields needed to be pink, so I'm bringing in some of that same ballet slipper color pink that I colored the columns in. And then I realized the hearts were too big. So I'm going in with the Lots of Letters mini die set, and I'm using one of those little hearts out of that set and cutting it from a red foil instead of a red glitter. And I like that lots better because you can still see the shields, but then there's the heart on top. I thought that was, I thought it got lost less, and it looked more like the shields that there would be at a royal castle. So I also played around with the colors of the shields, but I went with the pink in the end. So I did play around with this quite a bit, trying to figure it out, but see, the pink won. So try a few different colors, see what you like. I stamped out the sentiment, and I created the Queen of Hearts and the rabbit with extra die cut pieces behind them. So since I have the coordinating dies, I cut it out multiple times and built up a layered look. So these are going to really stand out from the background. And then I cut out the frame with a pink frame, a darker or a hot pink frame, to give that more of a framed look. The sentiment says, "My dear, here we must run as fast as we can just to stay in place." I added some foam squares behind each of those shields with the hearts on them. That'll give me a little bit of playtime to be able to make sure they're evenly spaced. And that looks pretty good, just like that. I'm going to finish putting all of these on, and then I'll glue on the images and our sentiment. Remember, I added a couple extra layers behind these, so they already are dimensional. And they feel really substantial too with those extra die cut pieces. So I'm going to put the queen right about there and the white rabbit right to the right of her, just like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and add that sentiment, and I kind of played around a little bit where that went. I still wanted to be able to see the arches from the castle. I think that looks pretty good right there. So there we go. That's going to do it. Now, I had someone visiting my craft studio recently, and she saw this card and just fell in love with it. And so I think I'll probably give it to her for her birthday. But look at how cute this turned out with the different foils and the colored ceiling, the inked arches and ceiling. And I just love that Queen of Hearts with her white rabbit. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. I'll be back with more inspiration, more cards, more Alice, of course, real soon. Thanks for stopping by today. I really do appreciate it. I love to see you back again and again. I'll be back soon. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.